بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Picking up from where we left off last week. So last week I believe we spoke about a little bit about Al-Masjid Nabawi and how that came about to be, and where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was staying. We mentioned he was staying in the house of Abu Ayyub Al-Ansari, right? He stayed there for a while until the construction of the masjid was basically completed. And there were we mentioned like a little bit of the dimensions and the general structure of the masjid, and that there were certain rooms that were, you just open the door, you walk right into the masjid, right? And those were some of them were the houses of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and that's where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would move once that construction was completed. The construction itself probably took like a few months since his arrival or so. But once that was finished off, that was that was when he finally moved into his actual house. Now, Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. Now, at this point in the Seerah, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is essentially laying out the foundations. Okay, so he just arrived in Medina. The Muhajirun just arrived to Medina as well, and there are the Ansar who are already there. But now he's doing some restructuring, some revamping, you can say. He's laying out some new foundations, getting rid of the old foundations. And so there were several steps that were most likely they were happening around the same time. Okay, so today, for example, we're going to talk about another one of these foundations that he laid out, which is the Brotherhood. We're going to discuss that. But most likely they were all taking part around the same span of time. It doesn't make sense that he finished this, then he started this, then he finished this, and then he started the next one. It was all happening around the same time. And of course, Al-Masjid al-Nabawi was the first, the first main establishment that he had established in Medina, and honestly shows you the importance of a masjid, right? The importance of having a place. Well, in fact, let's actually discuss what is a masjid in the first place, because actually a lot of people have a little bit of a misconception. Now, obviously, masjid primarily is it's a house of Allah. It's a place for sujood. It's a place for salah. It's a place for ibadah. It's a place for congregation. Okay, here in Calgary, for example, we have the Southwest community. Some of us live next to the masjid. Some of us 10 minutes away. Some of us 15 minutes away. Some of them in the northeast. Some of them different locations in the city. What brings us all together? The masjid, the salawat, whatever it is, khutbahs, jum'ah, lectures, whatever. Masjid is a central place for congregants to and believers to congregate in. Now, at that time, of course, Medina was not still well established yet. Masjid al-Nabawi was the primary masjid. Okay, there were probably a few masajid here and there, like we mentioned, for example, Masjid Quba. We mentioned that when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was entering into Medina, he prayed Jum'ah at a masjid close to Banu Salama. Okay, so you have these small, you can quote unquote masajid that are scattered around here and there, but the primary masjid was, of course, Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. And of course, a masjid is also a place for knowledge. It is a place for halaqat. It is a place where most of the revelation of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came down to him, and most of the ahadith. So subhanallah, as you walk around the Masjid Nabawi today, keep in mind you're literally walking in a place where probably 90% of the ahadith that you are reading today, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, all of them came down around this location. So it was a central pillar of knowledge. When people wanted to gain knowledge, they would go to the masjid. They would find Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They would find Ahlul Suffah. We're not going to talk much about them today. Ahlul Suffah were like some of the very, very poor Muhajirun, people who migrated to Medina, who were very poor. They didn't have any place to stay. They didn't have anything to do. Barely even had any clothing to wear. So they would stay in the masjid. But as a result of them staying in the masjid, they became very knowledgeable, because they're basically 24/7 around Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, listening to him, listening to Quran, listening to a hadith, and so on. So whenever someone wanted to go and learn something or ask something about Islam, they would go to the masjid. And today, of course, the same thing applies to our masjid today. This is what a masjid is. It's a place of knowledge. It is also a place of shura, a place of discussion. Whenever Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wanted to plan something, when and we're gonna see this soon, the Battle of Badr, Battle of Uhud, when there were discussions back and forth between the Sahaba and Prophet Muhammad SAW and some of the senior Sahaba and some of the younger Sahaba. Where were all of these discussions taking place? Definitely not out in the marketplace. They were in the Masjid. The Masjid is a central place. It was essentially like an political headquarters. Okay, so just like here in Canada, they have the what do they call it? I forgot. The Parliament, House of Commons. Yeah, that's kind of not US, right? Okay, I need to refresh my. I'm not very good at politics or social studies, but anyways, you can say the Masjid was a political building as well, where they would congregate and they would discuss with each other political decisions that would affect the Muslim Ummah. It was also, believe it or not, a place of socialization. It was a place where people would come and they would and hang out and joke around and talk. They would not talk about, of course, business and buying and selling and things like this, because this is not of the etiquettes of the masjid. But for example, we have several hadith where we get some of the Sahaba telling us of the days of Jahiliyyah, and they would be like laughing and joking with each other, like, "Oh yeah, we used to, worship a stone, right? And then when we find a more beautiful stone, we take that stone and we throw it away. We take that more beautiful stone and we start worshiping that stone." And they would be like laughing at each other, okay, like joking around, like it's a friendly joke, okay. But where would this kind of socialization be happening? It would take place in the masjid. And subhanallah, today there's some sort of stigma that people have associated normally. Yani, not to me, I don't mean to call out the elders, but is usually it's a stigma that is usually associated with the elders, that like no other sounds should be happening in the masjid. If we hear the sound of a kid's footstep in the masjid, then yani, someone's gonna get in trouble. If you hear some kids wrestling or playing around, and all of a sudden, what is this ummah? What is this masjid? What is this zoo? As some of the people even here in the masjid literally came to me, they're like, "Oh, what is this zoo that you have in front of you?" I'm like, "Ya akhi, say Alhamdulillah, you have these kids coming to the masjid." Anyways, no, of course, this is not to dismiss what our elders are saying. They do have a point, as that does have to be in moderation. Okay, so socialization, as long as it does not disrupt the main functions of the masjid, right? The salawat, the Quran, the halaqat, the lectures, as long as there's no disruption there. And after Isha, khalas, masjid is gonna close down. People are about to go home, and people are sitting down talking to each other. Sometimes you find someone bringing some shy. So since the days of Prophet Muhammad SAW, the masjid has been a place of socialization, and it was also a place of celebration. It was a place where nikah would take place every now and then. That whenever they wanted to celebrate. And to this day, even some people choose to do their nikahs in the masjid versus other places, which is fine. It's good to have the community come together and celebrate, and eat some sweets together and celebrate. Although a side point on this, it's not sunnah to do a nikah in the masjid. Okay, so it's nice, it's cool. If you want to do it, that's fine, but it's not sunnah. Okay, so you're not getting some special barakah in your nikah if you are choosing to do your nikah in the masjid, or if you choose to do your nikah in the haram in Mecca or in the Masjid al-Nabawi. There is no special barakah. It's just kind of like, yeah, we did our nikah in the masjid kind of thing. Anyways, back to this thing. Masjid was also a place that would take people in if they had no homes. So, and the prime example of this, of course, is Ahlul Suffah, the people who had nowhere to go. They didn't just kick them out of the masjid and be like, "Yeah, sorry, bro, we're closing. It's past Isha time now. Just get out, figure out yourself." They would take them in if they had no home. So, anyways, it is also mentioned that the Prophet Muhammad SAW gave his first khutbah, khutbatul Jum'ah. Now, Allahu Alam, this narration is not specific. The books of Seerah mention it after building the masjid. But Allahu Alam, it makes sense that the first khutbah he gave was when he was walking into Medina. Okay? So just keep that in mind. It is mentioned in the section after building the masjid, but it makes sense that his first khutbah, since he led a khutbah, right, when he was coming into Medina, that was when it happened. But we have the full khutbah recorded. So I thought I wanted to share with you what the khutbah of Prophet Muhammad SAW looks like, so that we can compare it with the khutbahs that we hear in our masajid today. Ibn Ishaq tells us in a lot of details أنه قام فيهم فحمد الله وأثنى عليه بما هو أهله ثم قال. So he started off by hamd and thana, إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه, just like the people, the imams today, they begin their khutbahs. ثم قال أما بعد. So this phrase أما بعد, which also khatibs say, it's part of the sunnah to also say it. أما بعد, it's part of balagha, eloquency. أيها الناس فقدموا لأنفسكم. O people, يعني do yourself a favor by doing good. Okay, قدموا لأنفسكم تعلمن والله لا يصعقن أحدكم ثم لا يدان غنمه ليس لها راع. Basically, he's reminding them, one day Allah Azza wa Jal shall take you away. He's reminding them of death. One day you will be taken away and you will be leaving your flock without a shepherd, meaning you're going to be leaving your families behind. You're going to be leaving everything behind and you're going to be by yourself. ثم لا يقولن له ربه وليس له ترجمان ولا حاجب يحجبه دونه. And then on that, and then after that person passes away, he shall stand in front of his Lord without any barrier or without any translator in the middle or anything. He's face to face in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, where Allah shall address that person and say, أَلَمْ يَأْتِكَ رَسُولِي فَبَلَّغَكَ وَآتَيْتُكَ مَالًا وَأَفْضَلْتُ عَلَيْكَ. Has my messenger not come to you to warn you and to deliver my message to you? Have I not given you a lot of money? Have I not given you a lot of blessing? فَمَا قَدَّمْتَ لِنَفْسِكَ. So what have you done for yourself? What have you done to benefit yourself? فَلَيَنْظُرَنَّ يَمِينًا وَشِمَالًا فَلَا يَرَى شَيْئًا. At that point, this person is standing in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's looking right and left. He shall not see anything in front, to his right or his left. ثُمَّ لَيَنْظُرَنَّ أَمَامَهُ فَلَا يَرَى غَيْرَ جَهَنَّمَ. And he shall look to his front and all he will see is Jahannam. فمن استطاع أن يقي وجهه من النار ولو بشق من تمرة فليفعل. Whoever is able to protect his face from the hellfire, even with a half a date in sadaqah, meaning ومن لم يجد فبكلمة طيبة. And even if you can't find half a date to give, with at least a kind word. الكلمة الطيبة صدقة. فإن بها تجزى الحسنة عشر أمثالها. Because any kind of good deed along these lines shall be rewarded with one hasana, and one hasana shall be rewarded with 10 times إلى 700 ضعف. So every hasana is multiplied by 10 up to 700 times. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So it was a very short khutbah, barely like 2 minutes, but subhanallah, very powerful, very eloquent, right to the point. He literally covered everything. He reminded them about death. He reminded them about the blessings of Allah to them. He reminded them about the hisab. He reminded them about Jahannam. And he told them what the action items are, what they should do. This is out of eloquence. SubhanAllah, today you might hear some khatibs, they speak for 30, 40 minutes. And wallahi, you walk out and you're like, what did I learn? What did I benefit? What's some action items I can apply in my khutbah? And here you have Prophet Muhammad in 2 minutes, he's giving you the whole thing. That was the first half of his khutbah. So he said, and he went and he sat down. Then he stood up again. ثم خطب الرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الناس مرة أخرى فقال إن الحمد لله أحمده وأستعينه نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. So even though this is commonly, we hear it in khutbahs in the introduction of the khutbah, Prophet Muhammad used to say it in the second half of the khutbah, not in the first half. And so he would say, إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله قد أفلح من زينه الله في قلبه وأدخله في الإسلام بعد الكفر. So he starts off, he's saying Alhamd, Alhamdulillah, we seek our assistance in Allah Azza wa Jal. We seek refuge from the evils of our own selves and the evils of our actions. Whoever Allah guides, none shall misguide, and whoever Allah misguides, none shall guide. I testify that none than Allah, that Allah, La ilaha illallah, right? That there is no God other than Allah, wahdahu la sharika lah. The best of all speeches is the book of Allah. Successful is the one whom Allah has decorated his heart with the Quran. وأدخله في الإسلام بعد الكفر, and he brought them into Islam after كفر. واختاره على ما سواه من أحاديث الناس, and that he has chosen them from out of all people to be upon this religion. إنه أحسن الحديث وأبلغه, that he is upon the book of Allah. أحب ما أحب الله, أحب الله من كل قلوبكم ولا تملوا كلام الله وذكره. So he's telling them, love what Allah loves. Love Allah with all of your heart, and never get bored from the dhikr of Allah and from the speech of Allah. وَلَا تَقْسُ عنه قُلُوبَكُم, and don't let your hearts harden from the speech of Allah and from the dhikr of Allah. فإنه من كل ما يخلق الله يختار ويصطفي, قد سماه الله خيرته من الأعمال ومصطفاه من العباد والصالح من الحديث. Basically he's saying that Allah has blessed you, has chosen you to be upon this ummah, to be someone who holds the kitab of Allah, to be upon Islam. So you should be proud of this. ومن كل ما أوتي الناس الحلال والحرام فاعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا واتقوه حق تقاته واصدقوا الله صالح ما تقولون بأفواهكم. So worship Allah, don't associate any partners with Him, fear Allah the way He should be feared, and speak the truth. وتحابوا بروح الله بينكم, and love one another for the sake of Allah. إن الله يغضب أن ينكث عهده, Allah would become angry when His covenant is not taken seriously, meaning the covenant of Islam. Wassalamu alaikum. So again, very, very short, concise khutbah. Also, during the first year, probably around the time of his arrival, an issue came up. How do we call people to prayer? So we now have, we mentioned Isra and Mi'raj, 5 daily prayers. How do we tell people to come and pray? And so this is a very famous story. It's mentioned in several different ahadith. Umair ibn Anas, he narrates, this hadith is in Abu Dawood, he mentions that اهتم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم للصلاة كيف يجمع الناس بها. So he was concerned, how is he going to gather people together for salah. فقيل له انصب راية عند حضور الصلاة فإذا رأوها آذن بعضهم بعضا. Why don't you, so one of them suggested, why don't you put a flag? Every time it's time for salah, you come outside and you put a flag, and whoever sees the flag, they know it's a time for prayer, and they can tell other people that this is the time for prayer. But Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he didn't like this idea. فذكر له القنع. Someone suggested for him the horn. The horn is what the Jewish people used to use to call people for their prayers. And because of that reason, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't like it, because the Jewish people would do it. فذكر له الناقوس. Someone suggested, okay, why don't we do the bells, like the Christians do on their Sundays, the church bells. And again, he didn't like it. In a different hadith, it mentions that he eventually agreed to build a bell. He says, قَدْ هَمَّ بِالْبُوقِ وَأَمَرَ بِالنَّاقُوسِ فَنُحِتْ. That he was thinking about the horn, but then he eventually told them to go and build a bell, to make a bell. And they did actually go and make a bell. But if you put all of these ahadith together, you could clearly tell that he told them to make this bell, but out of reluctance. Okay? He's reluctant to make this bell. He doesn't like the fact, because he just doesn't know what else to do. Okay? So now, فَأُرِيَ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ ibn زَيْدٍ فِي الْمَنَامِ. One of the Sahaba, his name is Abdullah ibn Zayd, radiallahu anhu. He had a dream. Okay? This is now his son, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Zayd. He's the one who is narrating this story. This hadith is found in Ibn Majah. قال رأيت رجلا عليه ثوبان أخضران يحمل ناقوسا فقلت له يا عبد الله تبيع الناقوس. Abdullah ibn Zayd, he's now telling us the dream. He says, I saw a man in my dream wearing 2 green garments and holding a bell, similar to the bell that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wanted. So I said to this person, O servant of Allah, will you sell me this bell? And so the man responded, وَمَا تَصْنَعُ بِهِ? Why do you want this bell? أُنَادِي بِهِ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. So he says, I want to call people to prayer using this bell. قال أَفَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى خَيْرٍ مِّن ذَلِكَ. Shall I tell you of a way you can call people to prayer that is better than this bell? So he says, what is it? And so he taught him the entire adhan as we know it today. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, all the way to the end of the adhan, exactly as we know it today. And he woke up from this dream. And in some narrations, it mentions that he saw this dream multiple times. But either way, he eventually went to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and he told him that this is what I saw in my dream. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, إن صاحبكم قد رأى رؤيا فاخرج مع بلال إلى المسجد فألقها عليه ولينادي بلال فإنه أندى صوتا منك. So he's telling the Sahaba that this is the dream that your friend just had. So he now speaks to Abdullah ibn Zayd. He tells him, go out to Bilal, go to the masjid and take Bilal with you. And let him, so tell him the phrases and let Bilal call the phrases out. Why? Because Bilal has a louder voice than you. Okay? فخرجت مع بلال إلى المسجد فجعلت ألقيها عليه وهو ينادي بها. So he says, I went to Bilal, with Bilal to the masjid, and basically I would tell him what the phrase is, and then Bilal would basically call it out as loud as he can so that everybody could hear him. So technically speaking, even though Bilal called out the first adhan, the first person to actually give the adhan was Abdullah ibn Zayd. Okay? So as the adhan was being given, who heard the adhan was being called? Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh. He came flying out of his house. He ran to the masjid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, wallahi laqad ra'aytu mithla alladhi ra'a. Ya Rasulullah, I swear I heard the same phrases in my dream. So both of them saw the exact same dream. So Abdullah bin Zayd was the one who beat Umar al-Khattab to the masjid. And Umar al-Khattab just came after and he reaffirmed it. He says, I saw the same thing exactly in my dream as well. So we learn from this that adhan was not actually taught to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It was not inspired to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ through Jibreel. Rather, it was inspired to a couple of Sahaba through a dream, and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ approved it. And so it became a part of our Sharia. And in fact, a lot of the sunnahs of adhan that we know of today are taken actually not from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ directly, rather they are taken from the mu'adhins who did their adhan in front of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, such as Bilal. So for example, we know the sunnahs of adhan is that, when they say hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, they look to the right, they look to the left, they're putting the hands in the ear, they make it long, right? This is all taken from Bilal. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ basically approved all of this. Okay? And from this hadith, actually, we learn one of the sunnahs of adhan is that the person who has the loudest and the clearest and the most beautiful voice should be the one who is giving the adhan. So if there's a group of men and they're trying to choose someone to make an adhan, one of the criteria that they can choose is based on this as well. So sometimes, subhanAllah, no offense to some of the brothers, but you just let someone else give the adhan, please, for our sake. Anyways, in addition to establishing Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ initiated one of the most beautiful and one of the most effective systems that history has ever seen. And that is Al-Mu'akha, the Brotherhood. And again, I mentioned that it happened before the Masjid, after the Masjid, during the Masjid. Makes sense, honestly, that all of these things are happening around the same time, okay? It's not independent events happening. But either way, Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he established the brotherhood between the Muhajirun and the Ansar in the house of Anas ibn Malik. The house of Anas ibn Malik, and there were around 90 men in the house. And some other narrations put 100, but either way, 90 to 100 people. Half of them were from the Muhajirun, and half of them are from the Ansar. And we should all know by now what are Muhajirun, what is Ansar, what are Ansar. I'll just mention it one more time, just so that we're clear. Muhajirun are the people who have done hijrah from Mecca to Medina, meaning they are originally people of Mecca. But due to the circumstances in Mecca, they migrated to Medina. They are now called Al-Muhajirun. And we will reference them as Al-Muhajirun for the rest of the seerah. And this is what the Quran references as Muhajirun. Whereas, of course, Al-Ansar It is referring to the Muslims who converted in Medina. They were living in Medina and they became Muslims in Medina. So now you have these two different groups of Muslims, Al Muhajirun and Al Ansar, half and half. And there is some sort of brotherhood that was happening between them. Now, what exactly do I mean by brotherhood? Okay, to phrase it very, very simply, the brotherhood, it's just a pairing. One man from the Muhajirun would be paired from one man from the Ansar. And they would literally be called brothers. Okay, this is why it's called brotherhood. And the same thing, by the way, for ladies, it took place. But for brothers, they had their brotherhood. And when I say brother here, it's not the same as when we say, "Oh, hi, brother." Even though technically, by definition, this is what we should be looking at each other as. When we say, "Hey, brother, how are you?" Salam alaikum, brother, right? Or sister, how are you, right? When we say brother and sister, nowadays we just use it as like a term. Okay, khalas. It's just everybody in the masjid uses it. So they say brother, sister, this and that. Okay, but when they say brother in the context of the seerah, they literally mean brother, like as if it's almost like a blood brother. Like the same way you would treat your brother at home, the same way you would treat your sister, the same kind of relationship, the love-hate relationship you have, the same way you take care of each other, you have each other's backs to a certain extent, right? The same way you support each other. Inshallah. So that was the form of brotherhood. So their brotherhood was so complete, they would literally share their house, they would share their food, their drink, their living, their wealth. They would even inherit from one another after death. SubhanAllah. Like that's how strong the bond of brotherhood was. They would inherit from each other during upon death, until, of course, this ruling became abrogated later. Abrogating is nasakh, meaning it was allowed at one point, and then verses came down to cancel it out. After the battle of Badr, Allah Azza wa Jal reveals a verse in Surah Al-Ahzab, verse number 7. I believe it's verse number 7. وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ. That the blood relatives, this is what Allah Azza wa Jal ordained in His book, that the blood relatives are more entitled for inheritance than other believers and immigrants. Meaning, even if you guys are brothers, yani brothers who were paired by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you should not be inheriting from one another. But even if they stopped inheriting, they still did everything else. They would share housing, they would share their work, they would share their wealth, they would share literally everything. Now, what is the point of this brotherhood? So beautiful, subhanAllah. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ recognizes that there are still remnants of Jahiliyyah. Okay? It's only recently that the Ansar converted and the Muhajirun, it's only been a few years. There's still a lot of Jahili foundations laid out. And so Islam is coming now to break down and to tear down all of these man-made barriers that were literally created in Jahiliyyah. To destroy this idea of I am better than you because I am coming from the family of such and such, or because my father is so and so, or because I am a noble and you are a slave, or because I am Arab and you are, a non-Arab, you are black and white, and subhanAllah, it's the same exact man-made divisions that we have made today. You are Arab, you are non-Arab, you are Pakistani, you are Indian, you are Egyptian, you are Syrian, you are this, and that. These are all imaginary barriers. And Islam is coming to destroy all of these kind of barriers. Islam has come to establish Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best among you in the sight of Allah are those who have taqwa. Allah does not care about any of your status or any of your wealth or any of your color or any of your background or your culture or country. Allah only cares about the status, the state of your heart and the state of the taqwa in your heart. And so this was one of the primary reasons of establishing this brotherhood. And this brotherhood was not just some kind of verbal talk that, the two people come together, I hereby declare that you guys today are brothers, yalla, go, get out of here. No, That's not the mu'akha. The mu'akha was something that was literally they experienced day by day. It was their whole life. They would live it. They would live that kind of brotherhood. They would literally live side by side together in the same house. And there's another point as well. Keep in mind the Muhajirun, they are new to Medina. Okay? And previously we even mentioned, for the most part, the Muhajirun were not liking Medina. They didn't like it. They were homesick. They missed Mecca a lot. And as for the Ansar, they were very good to them and they were very generous with them. But at the end of the day, they are dealing with a group of strangers. They love each other for the sake of Allah, but they don't really have a close personal bond with them. So, what better way to bring two groups who are strangers together than to provide each other with Islamic and moral and financial and emotional support by making them literally live together? The society in Medina did not simply flourish with a snap of a finger. It did not simply flourish just because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was there. No, there had to be foundations that were laid out. And wallahi, if only we understood this today, wallahi, our society would have been above all the other civilizations in the world. But this is the issue today. We are not acting upon this. The society in Medina does not flourish just like that. And in fact, for any society in the world to grow and develop any society, you have to have strong bonds between the people, between the members of the community, between the members of society. And there is no bond in the world that is stronger than the bond of the religion, than the bond of Islam. You can be okay coming from the same country. You can be coming, you might be holding the same passport. You might be raised in the same place. But these are all flimsy bonds. They don't last for long. And one thing or another, it gets broken. But the bond of Islam is a very thick and a strong bond. It does not get broken very easily, especially since people, even if they differ in opinions, even if they differ in the schools of thought, even if they differ in the way that they live their lives or their likes and their dislikes. But yeah, we just all love each other just because we all love Allah Azza wa Jal. We love each other because we all come to the masjid and we pray. We all love each other because we can agree together that we love the book of Allah. This is what it means to love for the sake of Allah. And this is very develop any kind of society. And so Ibn Ishaq, he mentions to us some of the pairings that took place. So he mentions Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he says, تَآخُ فِي اللَّهِ أَخَوَيْنِ أَخَوَيْنِ. So he's saying, I'm going to make you into pairs of brothers. ثم أخذ بيد علي بن أبي طالب فقال هذا أخي. He took the hand of Ali bin Abi Talib and he says, as for me, this is my brother. So he nominated Ali bin Abi Talib, even though he's not from the Ansar, but it was kind of like a special case for him. And he said, he is my brother. And another exception, it seems to be made, perhaps he just made exception for his own family or so. Zayd ibn Haritha was paired with his uncle Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was, the rest of the names I'm going to mention, it was Mecca, Medina. Okay. Abu Bakr was paired with Abu Bakr Siddiq was paired with Kharija ibn Zuhair. Umar ibn Khattab was paired with a man called Utban ibn Malik. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah was paired with Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Talha ibn Ubaidillah was paired with Ka'b ibn Malik. Mus'ab ibn Umair was paired with Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. So these are some of the pairings. I'm not going to list all of them. The books of Seerah, they list all of the pairings. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was paired with Sa'd ibn al-Rabi' and so on. And by the way, these pairings were not just random. It was just like wasn't just like, okay, you'll pick a number 1 to 90 and then you guys are together. No, it wasn't a random pick. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ knows exactly whom he is picking. He knows their character. He knows their status. He knows their wealth, their background, and so he's pairing people that he knows will be able to support each other. Okay, he's not just randomly picking people. And of course, there's the famous story. This is where we get the famous story of Abdurrahman ibn Auf with his paired brother, Sa'd ibn al-Rabi'. And this narration is found in Sahih al-Bukhari, where Sa'd, after they got paired, he said to Abdurrahman, إِنِّي أَكْثَرُ الْأَنصَارِ مَالًا فَأَقْسِمُ مَالِي نِصْفَيْنِ. Now, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he was the richest of all of Mecca. So it's only natural that he's now being paired with the richest of all of Medina. So Sa'ad tells Abdurrahman ibn Auf, I am the richest of amongst the Ansar. So I am going to split my wealth in half. You're going to take 50%, I'm going to take 50%. وَلِمْرَأَتان فَانْظُرْ أَعْجَبَهُمَا إِلَيْكَ فَسَمِّهَا لِي أُطَلِّقْهَا. This is like a different mindset. It's like, I'm married to two women. You can take a look at them, see the one that appeals to you the most. I'll divorce her, and after the iddah is done, you can go and marry her. And again, for so some of the ladies might be like, oh, what the heck, what is it? What is this? Again, this was that was society back then. Okay, that was society back then. No, nobody's saying that this is how society should be today. Okay, that was the norm back in the day. Anyways, and once her iddah is done, you can go and divorce her. Sorry, you can go marry her, not divorce her. So either way, he tells him, I have this, I'll give you half, you take half of this, I'll take half of this. So he's splitting everything in half. SubhanAllah. Wallahi, today we don't even do that with our blood relatives, with our blood brothers, blood sisters. Like okay, you want some money? Here's $10. Yalla, go. Right? And then here you have a stranger and be like, here's half of my bank account. Let me just transfer you half my bank account. SubhanAllah. Completely different mindset. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he tells him, بارك الله لك في أهلك ومالك أين سوقكم? Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you in your family. May Allah bless you in your wealth. Just show me where is the marketplace. So he tells him, go to such and such location. You will find the market of Banu Qaynuqa'. فمن قلب إلا معه فضل من أقط وسم. So basically, Abdurrahman, he took whatever he brought with him in a hijrah. Keep in mind, he left a lot of things behind in Mecca. He's basically coming with nothing, building himself from scratch. So he takes whatever he came with, he took with him to Medina. He goes to the marketplace. By the end of the day, he came back with some butter and some wheat. The next day, he goes back, he trades, and he makes some more. Next day, and so on and on and on, until he literally built his own wealth back up. ثم جاء يوما وبه أثر صفرة. Same hadith. One day he came and he had the scent of like very pleasant perfume. And so Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he noticed that and he tells him, Mahiyam, what is the scent of Abdurrahman? And so he says, تزوجت, I got married. And now why is this mentioned here in the narration? To get married, what do you need? You need wealth. You need to be wealthy. You can't just marry without any kind of job or without having something to be able to support a spouse. Meaning Abdurrahman ibn Auf literally built his wealth up back from scratch. And he says, now I had enough to get married. And he even asked her, Kam suqta ilayha? What was the mahr? What did you give her as mahr? And he says, Nawatan min dhahab. Aw wazna nawatin min dhahab. So the narrator of the hadith here got a little bit, he got doubtful. So he mentioned two things. He said, either he said, I gave her a gold piece the size of a date, or he says I weighed a date and I gave the weight, and I gave gold equal to the weight of that date. Okay, so the narrator said it was one of the or the other, so he was a little bit in doubt. So basically, this all comes to show you the generosity of the Ansar, but at the same time also the self-honor of the Muhajirun. The Ansar were very generous. They were willing to split everything. But the immigrants, they had their own dignity. And they said, you know what, Jazakumullah khairan, may Allah reward you, may Allah increase you. I can support myself. Let me go and I can make my own money. And so subhanAllah, this is what Iman is all about. Generosity, tawakkul, effort. Right? A balance of all these things. And of course about Abdurrahman ibn Auf, subhanAllah, this is an entire series. We can talk about Abdurrahman ibn Auf. It is said about him, لو اشترى التراب لربح به. Abdurrahman, from how wealthy he is, if he were to take sand and sell it in the marketplace, he would somehow make profit out of it. He was, subhanAllah, Allah just blessed him so much with wealth. And he was very, very, very rich. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf is one of my favorites when it comes to talk about wealth, because it breaks this stigma that some of the, perhaps some of the overzealous Muslims may have. They might think that, oh, if I want to be a pious and a good Muslim, then I have to sell everything that I own. and I have to live in a small apartment that barely has a bed. It has the same bed that Prophet Muhammad has, just a bunch of branches on the ground. And I'm just, my wife, she better be ready to only eat kafaf, the bare minimum, and we're just gonna live a very, very poor life. And here you get to see the primary example that shatters this image completely, Abdurrahman ibn Auf. And you get to see that a Muslim can be very wealthy and can live a very good life with a big house and a car and a job and health and all of these things. And someone like Abdurrahman ibn Auf made it to the 10th promised Jannah, the Ashr al-Mubashara. So why do you think this example is being provided to us? Now, of course, wealth is a test from Allah Azza wa Jal. It's not a good thing and it's not a bad thing. It can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. Wealth is a tool, okay? Just like this chair that I'm sitting on right now, it's like a tool. It's a tool. I can use it to sit down on and give a lecture with, or I can use it to grab it and smash it on someone's face and hurt someone with it. It's a tool. I choose whether I can do benefit with it or I can do harm with it. The same thing with wealth. However, wealth does tend to corrupt more than benefit. More often than usual, when someone is given a lot of wealth, that tends to cause him to become corrupt. However, that's not the rule. It is possible for someone to have a lot of wealth and be very mindful of Allah and be very worried with his wealth and give a lot of sadaqahs and live a normal life and a good life and make it to the highest levels of Jannah. So anyways, this is just a little bit of benefits we learned from Abdurrahman bin Auf. But anyways, back to the seerah. We will have like 10 more minutes. So basically, the whole point here is to establish the Ansar were very, very generous with the Muhajirun. It is even narrated in Al-Bukhari that from and other narrators of hadith as well, from Abu Hurairah, أن الأنصار قالت للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Ansar, they came to Prophet ﷺ and they said, اقسم بيننا وبين إخواننا النخيل. SubhanAllah. As if what they were doing is not enough. They were like, you know what? We have these gardens and plantations. Remember, Medina is like a place where they would grow date palm trees and they would sell dates to make money. Okay, so a lot of them were businessmen. To this day, even you go to Medina and you find many big gardens of dates, right? So they said, Ya Rasulullah, how about we split these gardens in half with the Muhajirun? That their source of rizq. But now they're saying they can come and work the same job as us and they can take half the salary. Alas, they can take half the salary. And this was too generous. So Prophet Muhammad said no. He said no. تكفوننا المؤونة ونشرككم في الثمرة. So basically he's saying, why don't we, to make this fair, you can take the muhajirun who are coming to you, you can use them for manual labor, to work the fields and harvest the crops and whatever, and they can share the crops with you. So that way, and subhanAllah, this is wisdom of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it shows that the Muhajirun, even though yes, the Ansar were very generous, they don't just blindly accept their generosity and just sit down doing nothing, absolutely nothing. He's saying, yes, okay, they're being generous to you, but you're not a freeloader. Okay, you're not gonna go live rent-free, just eat their food, live in their houses, and do everything, and while you live a 5-star, mashallah life, without doing anything back. No, let them work their fields, your fields, and you guys now have like you guys are mutually benefiting each other. And so the Ansar literally helped the Muhajirun so much that one time, like even the Muhajirun, one time they felt guilty. And they went to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and they basically said, Ya Rasulullah, we've never seen any kind of people like this before. Like we've never dealt with these kind of people before. They're like giving us everything they have. They're sharing everything they have equally, even if it's at time of difficulties. And they are still generous with us even at times of ease. They've taken care of our needs. They've allowed us to share with their good and their wealth. And they've done so much that, Ya Rasulullah, we're worried we're not going to get any rewards anymore. They're just going to get they're going to hog the entire reward. Like they're doing so much for us. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he tells them that no, they will not get all of your reward as long as you are praising them and you are, being good to them and you are making dua for them. because at the end of the day, um, the Muhajirun still have a higher rank than the Ansar. The Muhajirun, if you were to compare their status in the Quran and the Sunnah and whatever, the Muhajirun, they have a higher status than the Ansar. Now, just a final point, inshallah, before we wrap up, because we're running out of time. It appears, Allahu Alam, this is not explicitly mentioned, but this is something that I observed, that it appears, Allahu Alam, the system of the Brotherhood did not only happen in early Medina. It wasn't just something that he established in the first year of the Hijrah, and then he got them together, and then khalas, that was it. Khalas, we paired everybody. Okay, now everybody's good. We got our ummah together. No, everything is good. No. It seems that it continued on, because in the list of the mu'akha, in the list of the people who are being paired, it mentions, for example, Abu Darda and Salman al-Farsi. Salman al-Farsi, he was not there initially. He was not someone from Mecca, actually. So he was not someone who did hijrah from Mecca to Medina and then he got paired up. That means he got paired up down the road after. Now, of course, I don't know if you guys know the story of Salman al-Farsi. It's a very beautiful story. I wish we had time to cover it. The Zoroastrian, he was in the father is the priest, right? The Majus, he locked him in and he was about to kill him and he escaped. He killed the Christian monk. He converted to a version of Christianity. Then he went from land to land, from land to land, looking to learn more about Christianity. And then the last Christian who was upon his religion told him, I don't know anyone who's upon my religion anymore, telling him basically like our sect of Christianity is now extinct. So it appears that Salman al-Farsi was upon a Christianity that was upon the truth and was not the misguided Christianity that we see today, of course. And so he was given some signs that a prophet shall appear in such and such a land with date palm trees in a desert and whatnot, and he's going to have a seal of prophethood. And so one thing leads to another. The qadr of Allah, he gets sold as a slave to Medina in Yathrib. And so when he hears of when he hears that there is some person claiming that he's a prophet, he gets curious and he goes and sees and eventually finds the 3 signs and he immediately accepts Islam. So this is like the 1-minute summary of Salman al-Farsi's story, which honestly I did not give it the justice it deserves at all. It's like such a beautiful story. I encourage all of you to go and read it. But anyways, Salman al-Farsi, the point here is he was not a muhajir from Mecca to Medina. Okay, he came from another land, which shows that the mu'akha was taking place even later on. Even Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, he accepted Islam in Fath Mecca. Yet he got paired with someone whose name was Hattat al-Taymi. Conquest of Mecca. This is towards the end of the Seerah. This shows that the Brotherhood was a system that continued on. It wasn't only at the start of the Madani phase. It continued even until the death of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which means the Brotherhood is a neglected Sunnah. The Brotherhood today is a neglected Sunnah. And in all honesty, throughout history, we don't find a single group ever that has lived that was more generous to strangers than this group of the Ansar that came at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And it's no coincidence that they rose to the top because of who they are, because of these bonds that they grew together. And subhanallah, imagine what kind of a society we would have today if we just implemented a portion of it. Okay, I'm not telling you to implement all of it. I'm not telling you to split your bank account, split your house, split your divorce one wife, and nobody's telling you to do that. But I'm telling you, if we can only do a fraction of this, what kind of community would we have today? What kind of society would we have? And again, and subhanAllah, this is the whole point. And if we have someone, for example, who's a new Muslim, or someone who's new to the community, or someone who doesn't know where to go, imagine what would happen if they come to the masjid and they are assigned a person, right? And they're told, khalas, this person is now your mentor, your supporter. He will support you financially, he will support you emotionally, politically, whatever. How attached will this person become to the Muslim Ummah and to each other as a Muslim community, and to the masjid and to the message of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when they see such goodness? Okay, SubhanAllah. And imagine if I were to to say, يعني, subhanallah, yalla, brother Adnan, you're going to be akh with brother Muhammad over here. Khalas, you guys are ikhwan together. You're going to go and help each other out, support each other financially, economically. If he's in trouble, you help him out. If he's in trouble, you help him out. If, and so on. This would have a completely different community that we see today. Unfortunately, today we are living in a community where blood relatives are taking each other to court, and they are raising, cases against each other, and demanding money from one another, and saying, "No, I own this. No, I own that." Whenever the father passes away, the fights that tends to happen inside family. No, no, no. This is my inheritance. This is your inheritance. And then brothers stop talking to each other. Sisters stop talking to each other. Subhanallah, we've missed the entire point. If we were to bring back 1% of this brotherhood in our community, wallahi, we would see our community flourish unlike we have ever seen it in the past. This also teaches us, of course, the level of the Ansar, that it's not just any normal person to be able to reach that level. They were a special chosen group of people from Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is why Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says in a hadith, authentic hadith, one of the signs of Iman is that you have love toward the Ansar. And one of the signs of hypocrisy, of nifaq, is that you hate the Ansar. The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he himself said, after the conquest of Mecca, that were it not for hijrah, I would count myself from one of the Ansar. Meaning, he's saying, like, I can't, go against the fact. I can't change the fact that I'm biologically born into Mecca. But if I had the choice, I would have been one of the Ansar. Even after the battle of Hunayn, when there were a lot of ghanima, lots of wealth being distributed, and the Ansar didn't get a single penny. They didn't get a single penny from the massive amount of wealth that they got from the battle. Yet Prophet Muhammad SAW, he says to them, is it not enough for you that I am from amongst you? If the entire world goes in one direction and the Ansar goes in a different direction, then I shall take the direction of the Ansar and I will abandon the whole world. This is the status of the Ansar. And Allah Azza wa Jal gives them the highest praise in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Hashr, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ. What is تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ? They settled in Ad-Dar. Ad-Dar is a reference to Medina. They settled in Medina. من تبوأوا الدار والإيمان من قبلهم. So they settled in Medina and they embraced Iman before the Muhajirun arrived in Medina. يحبون من هاجر إليهم. Allah is testifying. They have genuine love for those who are coming to immigrate to them. ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا. And they don't have any kind of negative feelings towards the immigrants, even if they were being favored in certain circumstances for any reason. If they were given some special privilege or some special something, they would never feel any kind of negativity towards them. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ is from al-ithar, that they would choose their well-being above their own well-being, even if they were living in a time of difficulty. Even if they were living at a time of poverty and difficulty, they would still prefer the immigrants over their own selves. This is the status of the Ansar. And we cannot dismiss the words of Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran when we read this to the day of until the day of judgment. Subhanallah. So this is the status of the Ansar, and this is al-Mu'akha, the brotherhood. So next lecture, inshallah, so we'll stop here because there's only like 3 more minutes till the Iqamah. Next week, we will talk about, we're still laying down the foundations. So you can see the political foundations, the social foundations are being laid out. Next week, we're going to talk about a little bit of the political and the social and the financial foundations that are being laid out in Medina when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ establishes the constitution, establishes a certain set of rules that would apply for the Muslims, for the non-Muslims, for the Jewish people, and for all of them together. We will discuss those in detail next week, bi'idhnillah. So yeah, we'll pause here. Maybe we have time for one quick question, if anyone has a quick question. Yes? It is, yes. It is sunnah from the, and again, this is now branching out into fiqhi matters, right? So uh, some of the madhahib, they would tell you, yes, you have to praise the Muslims, otherwise the khutbah is not valid. And some tell you, no, as long as you do some dhikr of Allah in the khutbah, then your khutbah is valid. So, and they have different hadith to support that. Any other quick questions? Yes. We can ask it now, inshallah, quickly. When it was Yathrib, so now it's not told to us specifically when he came to Medina. Okay, in all likelihood, he came after, because he would not set his mind to go to Yathrib unless he had heard or had a reason to think that, oh, there might be something I'm looking for here in Yathrib. Okay, so he most likely performed his hijrah after the hijrah of Prophet Muhammad SAW. It could be in the first year, could be sometime in the second year, but the point here is, even later on, as the seerah continued on and with all these different events, even though we don't explicitly mention those events after today, but they're still taking place. That was kind of the point I was trying to make there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I do have to stop here because we want to catch the iqamah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. If you have questions, we can. I'll be downstairs again.